Religion teaches the denial of God. In A Course in Miracles, Jesus teaches, religion is an obvious attempt to unify into oneness. The law of one raw material tells us, the Christian's vision of Christianity is not one vision, any more than the Buddhist vision, the Shinto vision, and so forth is unified. Although each entity which calls itself Christian feels that it is a member of a great group, nevertheless, each individual is doing no more and no less than seeking the face of the great mystery of the infinite Creator, just as each non-church-going entity does, or does not do. How many Christians there are who have no interest whatsoever in seeking the truth, but are responding to stimulus, much in the same way that a second-density animal, which moves with the pack, follows the leader of the pack, and behaves as does his group. There are the most extravagant extremes from what Christians call sainthood, to what Christians call great evil within that great body of entities called Christianity. The one known as Jesus knew that the third density experience was coming to an end, and hoped not only for a few to learn of forgiveness and redemption, but for all to know the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. The creature the Bible, which has grown up from this teacher's body of instruction, bears almost no resemblance, and certainly no ideological resemblance, to the nature of the community of those who love each other, which the teacher known as Jesus the Christ, wished to form. Concerning religions, Jesus also teaches, all religion is the recognition that the irreconcilable cannot be reconciled. Allegiance to the denial of God is the ego's religion. Sickness and perfection are irreconcilable. If God created you perfect, you are perfect. If you believe you can be sick, you have placed other gods before Him. God is not at war with the god of sickness which you made. But you are. He is the symbol of willing against God, and you are afraid of Him, because He cannot be reconciled with God's will. The god of sickness obviously demands the denial of health, because health is in direct opposition to its own survival. But consider what this means to you. Unless you are sick, you cannot keep the gods you made, for only in sickness could you possibly want them. This is the offering which your God demands. He has many forms, but though He may seem like many different things, He is but one idea, the denial of God. The ego is an ally of time, but not a friend. For it is as mistrustful of death as it is of life, and what it wants for you, it cannot tolerate. The ego wants you dead, but not itself. The outcome of its strange religion must therefore be the conviction that it can pursue you beyond the grave. And out of its unwillingness for you to find peace even in the death it wants for you, it offers you immortality in hell. It speaks to you of heaven, but assures you that heaven is not for you. How can the guilty hope for heaven? The belief in hell is inescapable to those who identify with the ego. The ego teaches that hell is in the future, for this is what all its teaching is directed to. Hell is its goal. Although the ego aims at death and dissolution as an end, it does not believe it. The goal of death which it craves for you, leaves it unsatisfied. No one who follows the ego's teaching is without the fear of death. If death were thought of merely as an end of pain, would it be feared? Let us not think of its fearful nature, nor of the guilt it must entail, nor of the sadness and the loneliness. For these are only attributes of the whole religion of the separation, and the total context in which it is thought to occur. The central theme in its litany to sacrifice, is that God must die, so you can live. A major tenet in the ego's insane religion is that sin is not error but truth, and it is innocence that would deceive. Purity is seen as arrogance, and the acceptance of the self as sinfulness perceived as holiness. It is this doctrine that replaces the reality of the Son of God as His Father created Him, and willed that the ego be forever. Is this humility? Or is it rather, an attempt to wrest creation away from truth, and keep it separate? Additionally, Jesus teaches, He was not punished because you were bad. First, the crucifixion did not establish the atonement. The resurrection did. This is a point which many very sincere Christians have misunderstood. If the crucifixion is seen from an upside-down point of view, it certainly does appear as if God permitted, and even encouraged one of His sons to suffer, because He was good. Sacrifice is a notion totally unknown to God. It arises solely from fear of the records. This is particularly unfortunate, because frightened people are apt to be vicious. Sacrificing others in any way, is a clear-cut violation of God's own injunction, that man should be merciful even as his Father in heaven is merciful. Many very devoted ministers preach this every day. This particularly unfortunate interpretation, which actually arose out of the combined misprojection of a large number of followers, and would-be followers, led many people to be bitterly afraid of God. This particularly anti-religious concept happens to enter into many religions, and this is neither by chance nor coincidence. The real Christian would have to pause and ask, how could this be? Is it likely that God himself would be capable of the kind of thinking? The best defense, as always, is not to attack another's position, but rather to protect the truth. It is not necessary to consider anything acceptable if you have to turn a whole frame of reference around in order to justify it. This procedure is painful in its minor applications, and genuinely tragic on a mass basis. Persecution is a frequent result, justifying the terrible misperception that God himself persecuted his own Son on behalf of salvation. The very words are meaningless. It has always been particularly difficult to overcome this because, although the error itself is no harder to overcome than any other error, men were unwilling to give it up, because of its prominent escape or justification value. In milder forms, a parent says, "This hurts me more than it hurts you," and feels exonerated in beating a child. Can you believe that the Father really thinks this way? It is so essential that all such thinking be dispelled that we must be very sure that nothing of this kind remains in your mind.